Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I wanted to follow up on the aggressive infiltration build. In the previous video I did the choosing the right rifle for your gameplay, and that overall is pretty objective. We know that the three rifles that I mentioned, the TSAR, the sas-r, and the Ghost, are really pretty much the best for this close quarters aggressive infiltration style, just based on the mechanics of the gun itself. Now, in this video, we're going to start talking about, your suit slots, abilities, your sidearm choices, and these are a little bit blurrier, just because they're going to kind of depend on your play style, your accuracy, and all those sorts of things. So I'm going to give you my overall recommendations, and kind of give you a couple different options with my preferred ones. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and save some of the ones that take a little bit more conversation towards the end, and we're going to go ahead and just jump into the ones that I think are very straightforward and things that I think you should be using. Starting out with the suit slot, for those of you that have played a lot of Infiltrator before, but have mostly stayed towards the outside of battles, you're probably familiar with using like the advanced shield capacitor or the ammo belt, just because you don't normally take a whole lot of damage when you're far away, and if you do, you generally can cloak and move and regenerate your health and come back. In this type of role, you're going to want to have nano weave, and the more nano weave you have, the higher tiers, the better your damage reduction is going to be, or your damage resistance. So, you're going to go with nano weave for this and upgrade this pretty quickly because the higher tiers are going to make you live a lot longer. For your tool slot, we've got the recon tool or recon detect device, and ultimately with these darts, it's probably one of the single most important things that you can do, not only for your team, but so you can put yourself into good position, to take on groups of enemies and survive longer. As you upgrade this, you're going to notice that you get more darts, you get a larger radius, and, the darts last longer. So go ahead and start sorting up through that. Now, is it as crucial as nano weave? No, but I would kind of balance out so you're kind of moving them up together, just because it is so important to being successful in this role. Now, for your grenade slot, there's really a couple different options. I'll tell you what's not an option is the decoy grenade. Yes, I'm sure some people can be successful while using the decoy grenade, but ultimately, the effectiveness overall is pretty limited. It's helpful if you're trying to draw people away and you're playing more of a support role, but we're not playing a support role. We're playing an attack role. So, your two options are going to either be the frag grenade or the EMP. I prefer the EMP grenade. Ultimately, what it's going to do is it can reduce the shields a little bit. It's going to disorient the HUD and the visuals of the people that you're engaging. It's going to mess with explosives a little bit. All in all, this is going to be your equivalent of the concussion grenade. You can get in there, do a lot of damage quickly before the enemy even knows what's going on. Now, you can obviously use the frag grenade, and the effectiveness of these is somewhat mixed, but you're going to get more bang for your buck, no pun intended, when talking about grenades, using the EMP. Alright, so for the three areas that require a little bit more conversation, we've got the ability slot, the sidearm, and your utility slot. So let's go ahead and start there with the utility, and your three options are going to either be an anti-personnel mine, a restoration kit, or a medical kit. For me, the one that you can go ahead and rule out is going to be the restoration kit. I know some people like them, and I think for classes where you're using a fully automatic weapon, there's a lot of benefit to using restoration kits, as they're going to continue to increase your health while you're taking more damage. That being said, when you're playing with a bolt-action rifle, especially up close and engaging enemy targets that are, in close quarters, you're going to want to be able to put yourself back to full health and cloak and get yourself to where you can get to cover and find a new engagement place. Another thing that's kind of an issue is the restoration kits stop healing you as soon as you cloak. So you kind of lose out on some of the benefit of the long-term regeneration because you're losing out on that when you cloak. So now we're between the medical kit and the mines. Now, in most situations, I would suggest using the medical kit because it's going to allow you to stay alive a little bit longer and continue to engage. That being said, you kind of need to pair it just depending on the situation. If you're going to maybe jump through a jump pad and engage a couple enemies and come back, well, maybe then you can find a medic or get to a terminal and switch over to a medic to heal yourself. And then you can actually drop the mines and get yourself some kills. Another option is if you're leaving a base, maybe you drop a couple mines and switch back over to medkits. Mines certainly have their place, but when you're talking about this specific game style, I would put my money on the medical kit just for the increased survivability long term. Now, when we talk about the ability slot and choosing between hunter cloaking and nano armor cloaking, it's going to kind of depend on your ability to train yourself to use one of these effectively, or kind of just picking one that's going to suit the situation that you're in a little bit better. Now, the primary difference is the duration overall between these two options. Hunter Cloaking is going to give you 12 seconds of cloak duration when maxed out, and Nano Armor is going to give you 8.5 seconds. So we're talking about a 3.5 second difference there. Now, the recharge time is where things get really different. The Hunter Cloaking fully recharges in 6 seconds, which goes by pretty fast. Nano Armor is going to take 11 seconds to build back up. And let me tell you, that 5-second difference is definitely noticeable. Now, the Nano Armor definitely comes with its own benefit, though. When you're getting a 35% reduction in damage when being shot while cloaked. Now, here's where you got to kind of make up your mind and decide which one suits you best. If you consider that an Infiltrator's got 900 HP, and then you add on 250 from maxed out Nano Weave, plus 35 reduction in damage taken, you get about the equivalent of 1500 HP. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that assuming you've taken 0 damage from targets while you are not cloaked, you're going to survive an additional 4 bullets, depending on the damage of your, assuming about 140-something damage weapon. That is significant, but if you're cloaked, you can't engage the target. So you're basically just running. And with the changes that have actually happened to cloak, you're not that hard to see or hit right now while you are actually supposed to be invisible. For me, I prefer to use the Hunter Cloaking. I like the additional length and the initial cloaking ability. I like the fact that it recharges a little bit faster. And for me, I'm never using cloaking to be completely invisible. I'm using cloaking so when I'm running in the peripherals or I'm not charging somebody head on, somebody's going to have a hard time noticing me. I think you get enough from using the Nano Weave where you can actually afford to use Hunter without the Nano Armor. Now, can you feel like a little tank badass using the Nano Armor? Yes, absolutely, especially when paired with Nano Weave. That being said, if you do decide to go that route, you need to get very familiar with the time it takes to recharge. Again, the 8.5 second duration on the Nano Armor Cloaking isn't that bad. The problem is if you're familiar with Hunter Cloaking, it's going to take so much time to build up that you're going to feel like you should be able to cloak again, and you're going to get yourself into some bad situations. So again, my money is on the Hunter Cloaking. Play around with them a little bit and see what you prefer, but I think most of you are probably going to land on the side of Hunter as well. Now, choosing a sidearm is where things get really subjective, and it's going to have to do with your aiming ability, whether you prefer to aim down sights, whether you prefer to hip fire, do you want a silenced weapon, all sorts of things like that. It also has to do with your mindset a little bit. When you're engaging targets, do you just automatically assume that everybody has Nano V5, or do you just engage knowing that some will and some won't? Let me kind of explain that a little bit. Every character outside of Infiltrator has 500 stock health plus 500 shield, so 1,000 damage points. If you hit somebody in the body or the chest, it's 100% damage. If you hit them in the legs, it's 90% damage, and in the head, it's a 1.5 times multiplier. So, with that in mind, you're talking about Nano V5 targets having 1,250 health points. So, the rifles that I've suggested do 750 damage at the shortest distance, at their max damage range, which is 10 meters. So, within 10 meters, if you hit somebody in the chest, it's going to do 750 damage. That's going to leave you with 500 hit points that you need to finish them off with. Now, no pistol is going to do 500 damage. So, even the Commissioner, which is the big badass, it does 450 damage non-headshot, so body shot. You're going to still need to take 2 shots. The underboss in the same category does 375 damage. Again, still takes 2 shots. So in that mindset, we're saying that the underboss has less recoil, a better rate of fire. So assuming that everybody out there has Nano V5, I prefer the underboss. The problem is it's not that straightforward. When you start considering that other people out there are going to have rank 4 and below of Nano Weave, then things get more complicated because at level 4 you have 1,200 health on everybody but Infiltrators. That's going to leave you with 450 left over, meaning that the Commissioner will do a one-shot kill. So, just looking at that, the Commissioner seems like a really straightforward option. It's got great damage out to range. It's going to finish off every rank of nano-weave target if you've hit him in the chest with one additional shot. And seems like a really straightforward answer. And it is. It's one of the best options that you can have. That being said, there's a couple other things that you want to take into consideration. You can't silence a Commissioner. And for me, I love having a silenced sidearm. I like to have a silenced primary and a silenced secondary because when I get in this aggressive role, I want to get my kills and I want to keep on killing. I don't want to get, one shot, shoot my Commissioner, and then all of a sudden everybody knows where I'm at. So then we start looking at some of the Empire-specific pistols that are out there. And there's several options for each of these. Now, for the VS, we're talking about the Beamer, which has 167 damage, the Manticore with 200, and the Cerberus with 250. Now, each of these are going to take either 2 or 3 shots, but then you also got to take into mind rate of fire and the sights and all that sort of stuff. So, for the VS, I prefer the Beamer. I actually like the stock pistol myself. It's got a high rate of fire, it's accurate, especially when you slap on a silencer and a laser sight. I think it's the perfect sidearm for a VS infiltrator. For the NC, it's the Desperado in my mind. You're between the Desperado at 167, the mag shot at 200, or the Rebel at 250. Again, the same damage output options that you have with VS. The Desperado is your 2-shot burst pistol. You can equip it with a silencer and a laser sight. It's really good for hip firing, and it's easy to do the damage. So for me, on this build, it's going to be a Desperado. And then for the TR, you've got the Repeater, which does 112 damage. It's the weakest of the pistols overall. However, it shoots 3-round bursts. You've got the TS2, which does 143 damage, and the TX2, which does 167. Again, we're talking about 5 shots, 4 shots, 3 shots to finish off somebody that you've already hit in the chest. For me, when we're talking in this category, I like the Repeater. So both for the TR and the VS, I like their stock options. I like the burst fire ability of the Repeater. I like the fact that you can put a silencer on it, a laser on it. Ultimately, for me, I think those 3 are your best options. Again, Repeater, Desperado, Beamer. Now, how do you actually go about choosing between the 3 of these? That's where your own personal playstyle and preference comes in. If you personally don't give a crap about having a silencer, then I would say by all means choose the Commissioner. It's an easy, straight-up option that's going to finish off almost every single target, and it's going to do that very well. That being said, I always prefer to have a silencer and a laser sight, and I want to stay off the map, and I like something that's going to do a lot of damage and can spray a little bit. For me, in my mind, I would prefer the Repeater, Desperado, or Beamer. That's how I play. That's my preference between those. I would really suggest that you go into the VR and do what I call the jump around like a madman test. Go down to where there's a lot of targets and see how well, while you're moving around and jumping and turning, you can actually land these shots. Because for some people that don't have great aim, and sometimes I fall into this category, I have a hard time landing the Commissioner shots when I'm moving around quite frequently, especially since I'm not going to be aiming down sights. So go in, test these out for yourself, strap on the attachments, and see what you think actually happens, but that's what I would suggest. Alright guys, so that sums it up. I went ahead and threw the final kits up on for each faction, so if you guys want to take a look over these and let me know if you have any questions or differ in opinion somewhere, please feel free to let me know. Probably one of the next videos will be about best practices and tactics while playing this sort of class, so appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, and I will talk to you all later. Take care.